Let's start with a fundamental question of warfare, one that seems almost impossible.
I mean, really think about that for a second. An entire nation brought to its knees, but its armies are still intact, its cities have never been stormed. How on earth is that even possible?
Well, the answer is you don't attack the land at all. You cut the entire country off from the rest of the world, and then you wait. This incredibly powerful and often brutal strategy is called a naval blockade.
So, what are we really talking about when we say naval blockade? Because, let me tell you, it is way more than just a line of ships parked offshore.
See, a blockade isn't just about stopping a few boats. It's a really sophisticated tool of national-level pressure. It's a military action, for sure, but its goals are economic and psychological. The whole point is to cripple an enemy's ability to even wage war, to squeeze them so hard they're forced to surrender.
So how does it actually work? What makes this strategy so devastatingly effective when it's done right? Well, it's basically a coordinated attack on 3 different fronts, all at the same time.
First, you strangle their economy. I mean, think about it. No trade means no money coming in. It means no imported raw materials for your factories, no fuel for your war machine. It's a slow, grinding death by attrition. Second, you break their will. A fleet sitting on the horizon is this constant nagging reminder that you're totally isolated. Food starts getting scarce, people get angry, and suddenly the government's grip starts to loosen from the inside. And third, you isolate their military. No new reinforcements can get in, no fresh supplies, no moving troops around by sea. You've essentially put them in a cage.
And all of this, every single piece of that strategy hinges on one absolutely crucial concept that military strategists call command of the sea. It's actually pretty simple. You can't enforce a blockade if you don't control the water. Naval superiority isn't just a nice-to-have, it is the absolute, non-negotiable prerequisite for this whole thing to work.
Now, this isn't just some abstract theory from a textbook, right? This strategy has literally shaped the rise and fall of empires for centuries. So let's take a look at how this theory plays out in the real world.
And I mean, this goes way, way back. We're talking about the Punic Wars, where Rome crippled its rival Carthage just by cutting off its sea lanes. Fast forward a couple thousand years to the Napoleonic Wars, Britain's Royal Navy did the same thing to Napoleon's entire European empire. Then you've got the US Civil War and the famous Anaconda Plan designed to strangle the South's economy. And of course, in World War I, the Allied blockade of Germany became the central, absolutely devastating part of the war.
You know, the Napoleonic Wars are a fantastic case study because you get this tale of 2 blockades. Napoleon, who was a genius on land, he tried to blockade Britain from the land. He ordered all European ports closed to British goods. It completely backfired. But the British Royal Navy's blockade of Napoleon's Europe, enforced relentlessly out at sea, that was a masterpiece. It starved his empire of resources and was a huge reason he was eventually defeated. A few decades later, you get one of the most perfectly named military strategies in history, the Anaconda Plan. The name really does say it all. The idea was for the Union to wrap itself around the Confederacy just like the snake. They'd set up a tight naval blockade on the coast while also grabbing control of the Mississippi River. The goal was to just squeezing the life out of the Southern economy, which was almost entirely dependent on selling its cotton overseas.
But by World War I, the blockade reached a whole new level of terror. The British blockade of Germany didn't just slow down war production, it caused devastating food shortages across the country. Germany's response? A desperate counter-blockade using a terrifying new weapon, the U-boat. Their submarines inflicted horrific losses on Allied shipping, but, and this is a huge but, it came at a massive strategic cost. It was their unrestricted submarine warfare that directly pushed the United States into the war, and that ultimately sealed Germany's fate.
But all this talk of brutal effectiveness, it forces us to stop and confront a really profound and, well, a deeply troubling question. What is the real human price of winning this way?
And right here, this is the core of the dilemma. Because when you starve a nation's economy, you inevitably starve its people. The strategy isn't just targeting an army. By design, it targets the entire society.
This flies right in the face of some core ideas of modern just war theory. Take the principle of distinction. It basically says you have to separate soldiers from civilians. But how can you possibly do that when you're trying to starve an entire nation? And then there's the principle of proportionality, which asks if the military advantage you gain is worth the collateral damage. What is the acceptable price in human suffering to win a war?
It's a really stark question, isn't it? There are no easy answers here. It's something leaders and nations have had to grapple with for centuries and still do today.
So where does all this leave us? What's the big takeaway here? Well, it's that the naval blockade is easily one of history's most complex and most consequential acts of war.
It's a strange paradox, really. On one hand, it's an undeniably effective strategic tool. It has toppled empires and it has won global conflicts. But on the other hand, it's a weapon of attrition that causes profound, indiscriminate suffering, especially for civilian populations. It's one of the brutal realities of total war.
And that brings us to a final thought for today. In our modern world of drones, satellites, and cyber attacks, does controlling physical sea lanes, a strategy that's literally from the age of sail, does it still hold the same power? Or is it just a relic of a more brutal time?